bombshells, Governor Pence names his next lieutenant governor. We talk with Eric Holcomb and about what really drove the decision.
Whenever someone says it has nothing to do with politics, you can almost guarantee that it has to do with politics.
And could a dispute over signatures erase Todd Young's name from the May primary ballot for Indiana Senate?
From RTV6, Indianapolis This Week.
Thank you so much for joining us for Indianapolis This Week. As you join us on air, we are also online right now with you at our official Twitter account at Indy This Week. And we, of course, start with Governor Pence's shakeup at the State House, nominating Eric Holcomb to be his next lieutenant governor. He's set to replace Sue Ellspermann, who has applied to become the next president of Ivy Tech, but has not been offered the job. Joining us now, Lieutenant Governor nominee Eric Holcomb. Eric, thanks so much for being here.
Great to be back, Jason.
Bit of deja vu. We were here 1 week ago. You were still running for the Senate at that point, and I can only assume that Governor Pence was watching the show, saw something he liked, and then called you on Sunday night. Is that fair?
Oh, what a difference 1 week makes.
How about it? You've been through it.
A lot's happened in that time period.
You have left the Senate race, of course, to serve in this position, possibly for only 9 months. Why?
Well, it was a high honor for him to consider me and then to make the ask. I was running for the United States Senate for the very same reasons that I'm trying to help on this front. It's a little closer to home, so I wouldn't have to get on an airplane as much, but I will be traveling the state just as much as I was when I was running for the United States Senate, or if elected as the next United States Senator. So I am all about helping move this state onward and upward, and we have the right trajectory, and anything that I can bring to assist, I'm all in.
Shortly after accepting the position, Todd Young's candidacy came into question over a signature issue. Do you still take this position if it ended up only being a race between you and Marlin Stutzman in the primary?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there was no gaming this thing out. This was about serving the state in this capacity, and when the offer came, I was actually I just saw Marlin and Todd and myself were at a Lincoln Day dinner up in Cass County, Logansport, and about 30 minutes prior to the Super Bowl kickoff, the governor called, and I was in the town of Burlington, Indiana, and stopped and got out of the car, and we had a good discussion. And then the next morning, Monday morning, we met and kind of made it official, and then Tuesday was the announcement, and here I am again.
During that announcement, you, the governor, Lieutenant Governor Sue Ellspermann, said that this had nothing to do about politics 9 months before the election. A lot of Democrats, though, some Republicans, say that this was about pushing Sue Ellspermann out the door.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
Nothing could be further from the truth, and I'm going to refrain from going down that political road. I've got my eye on the ball. I have a high responsibility to serve the taxpayers once sworn in, and I have 6 agencies that I need to take responsibility for that I'm passionate about. This is right down my strike zone when you're talking about ag and defense and energy and community and rural affairs and homeland security, tourism. I know a little bit about wandering around Indiana, and so I'm focused on that. Anyone that knows Lieutenant Governor Sue Ellspermann knows that she is also passionate about higher education. She came from that and has served it. She's been a trailblazer, but served this state most recently as lieutenant governor, but she will be a perfect fit pursuing her dream.
Also at that introductory press conference, the governor said that he and the lieutenant governor would have some policy discussions and debates behind closed doors, at least. What issues are you going to debate the governor on behind closed doors, out of the spotlight, and are civil rights protections for the LGBT community one of those issues that you're at least going to talk about?
One of the things that attracted me to Governor Pence, and I've known him since 1988. We both attended Hanover College, and I, in fact, back in 1988, invited him to come off the trail at the time and speak to a dinner crowd, and he was gracious enough to do that. So I've known him for a long time. During these discussions and watching him in the past, I'm encouraged that he wants a lot of opinions around the table, and that's who I am. I said at the outset of my previous campaign that I wanted to attract folks of different backgrounds and perspectives and minds. That's healthy for discussion. And so what I think that I can bring to this is kind of a long view, kind of a context about where we were as a state, but not get bogged down in the past, be able to defend our actions that we've taken, but where are we going and how are we going to get there? And so Yes, I've had some experience in the governor's office over, former Governor Mitch Daniels' 2 terms, and I expect to have the very same discussions. Everything's on the table to discuss. It's our responsibility to know every side of the argument, so to speak, and then lead. And so I would say everything is on the table to discuss, and I think he wants it that way.
A few seconds left. Besides going through all the binders that you're going through right now, your biggest goal over the next 9 months?
Well, to be prepared to hit the ground running, and then to make sure that when I'm sworn in, and then to finish the session strong, and then to finish the year out strong, so that ultimately you're correct that politics will have a role in this because we have a campaign right around the corner. The fall will be here before we know it, and we'll be prepared for that. But I want to make sure that Indiana, as does Governor Pence, is moving forward so that we maintain our AAA bond credit rating, and that we have our reserves at the proper level, and that we're still known as that jobs magnet, and we're attracting folks from all around the world that know Indiana's a great place to invest and grow your business.
Lieutenant Governor nominee Eric Holcomb, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Jason.
Good to see you soon. We're joined this morning by Nathan Gonzalez from the Rothenberg and Gonzalez Political Report. Nathan, thank you so much for being here this morning.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
You downgraded the Indiana governor's race back in August to lean Republican. Pending his confirmation, what does Eric Holcomb mean to that ticket going forward with Mike Pence?
Well, I think it's been quite an exciting time past couple of days in Indiana with Holcomb moving from the Senate race to the governor's race, and I think it's still a big question mark about what exactly he'll bring to the ticket. I know that there is the narrative or the scenario that he will help bring some of the Governor Mitch Daniels' camp into the fold, maybe some of those folks who were not excited by the way Governor Pence handled the RFRA legislation, but I think it's still unclear whether Holcomb's going to be able to do that. Holcomb was supposed to be able to leverage that network that he had developed through Governor Daniels into a top-tier Senate run, and it just didn't materialize that way. And so we'll have to see whether he's able to bring some of that to the ticket or not.
Governor Pence, Lieutenant Governor Sue Ellspermann, and of course Eric Holcomb all said when they made the announcement this past week that this had nothing to do with politics, but really this had everything to do with politics, right?
Whenever someone says it has nothing to do with politics, you can almost guarantee that it has to do with politics. I don't believe there are accidents in campaigns. Everything happens for a reason, but we're going to have to see whether it happens for the reasons that they intended. And I think we still have a long way to go in this race.
Turning now to the Senate race itself with Holcomb out, what does that mean for the campaign between Todd Young and Marlin Stutzman, assuming that Todd Young's campaign is still viable and the signature issue is not an issue going forward?
Well, yeah, and that's a big question mark. So, yes, if we say that Todd Young is going to be on the ballot, I don't think that Eric had reached his Senate campaign had reached a level where it was a huge factor. I know it's almost difficult to say because of the connections that he has within the Republican Party and the expectations he had coming into the race, but I'm not sure that he was going to be a big factor. Now, as long as it's Young and Stutzman head-to-head, I think Young continues to have the advantage. But this has just, the ballot access and the signatures has just been a huge headache that I know that there are Republicans here in town who wish that they didn't have to deal with. And so we'll see if he ends up clearing it up and getting that access.
A wild week in Indiana politics here. Club for Growth had endorsed Stutzman this past summer. They've kind of gone radio silent since. Is he losing support among conservatives statewide?
Well, those are kind of two different questions. Specifically to the Club for Growth or any outside group for that matter, these outside groups are not just endless streams of money. When they are looking at a race and they're looking at investing in a race, they want to make sure that they are investing in a credible vehicle that will be able to perform. And I think there were some questions late last year about the Stutzman campaign and the direction he was going. And I think some of that investment may have been in doubt. We'll have to see whether those questions have been cleared up and whether Stutzman can inspire confidence to where some of these outside groups will get in. But I think he needs those groups to kind of level the playing field with Todd Young, who is starting at least the election year with a financial advantage.
Regardless of who it is, Stutzman or Young, does Barron Hill have a chance?
I think Barron Hill probably needs more than one break to go his way. If all things are equal, I think either Young or Stutzman would start the general election with the advantage. If it's Stutzman and he starts to fall into a Richard Murdoch situation, then it might become vulnerable. Depending on the top of the ticket, that's one thing that we haven't talked about is what happens, who the presidential nominees are, and what's the dynamic at the top of the ticket is going to have an impact on this race one way or the other. And the presidential race is wide open right now, so we have to wait. But I think Barron Hill, he needs a lot of help. His fundraising has been poor for a House candidate, let alone a Senate candidate, and he's just not going to be able to get there on his own.
Nathan Gonzalez from the Rothenberg and Gonzalez Political Report. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
No problem. Thank you.
Coming up is funding for rebuilding Indiana's streets and highways hit a roadblock. Our Katie Hines has new information next. You're watching Indianapolis This Week, only on RTV6. And welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. Have lawmakers now hit a roadblock on plans to fix Indiana's roads and highways? Our TV6 State House reporter Katie Hines is working on that for us.
Figuring out how to pay for repairs to the state's roads and bridges and curb the production of meth in Indiana remain two key issues in the second half of the legislative session. Lawmakers in the House and Senate are trying to find common ground on two very different competing transportation funding proposals. Right now, it remains unclear whether and where they'll find that common ground. Proposed tax increases in the House plan are a non-starter for Senate Republican leaders. House Republican leaders don't appear willing to budge on the idea of borrowing in the Senate plan.
We've been here before. We'll try to work for common ground. And the question is really whether we want to take a short-term or a long-term approach.
We'll continue to talk about it and see if we can find a sweet spot somewhere in the middle on this. But the tax increase is a high hurdle for us in the Senate right now.
The Senate Appropriations Committee held a discussion but didn't vote on the House plan last week. Republican leaders in both the House and Senate indicate they'll schedule a hearing also to confirm Eric Holcomb is Indiana's next lieutenant governor before the end of the session. Jason.
Our thanks to Katie Hines. There, we're joined now by our political insiders. Pete, seat for the Republicans, Kip 2 for the Democrats, and what a week. You almost got to
say the least.
Take a deep breath after all that. Pete, let's start with you. Eric Holcomb leaving the Senate race, going with the governor now. Your thoughts, what led up to this? Was it really as big a surprise as he alluded to?
Yeah, it was a surprise to me, and I should say at the outset, a close personal friend, Eric Holcomb is. He's also a client. But this was a huge surprise. Monday morning, came into the office. I heard word from a reporter in D.C. that there were rumors about Eric getting out of the U.S. Senate race. A couple hours later, he told some of us personally about what was happening. But I think it's a great pick for the governor. If you talk to folks who know Eric Holcomb, he is a uniting force. He has been in and out of public service for several years, for a decade or so now, and people across the state love him, they respect him, and I think it's a really solid pick and will prove to be not just as LG, but in the campaign as well.
Kip, is he as beloved as Pete has led us to believe?
I'm shocked to hear that.
I think the purpose for this pick was this governor's in a pretty desperate position to get reelected. He's looking for a hatchet man. The governor doesn't like to be negative. Everybody knows, and on our side has felt the wrath of Eric Holcomb as the state chair as a partisan hack. You look at some of the mailings he's put out over the years. He accused one guy of supporting bestiality because he supported the state budget. So what's happening here is the governor was looking for a hatchet man, and he found one.
Pete?
Democrats love living in the past. There's nothing I love more than Kip 2 calling people partisan and hatchet men. This is the poster child for hatchet men right here.
It takes one to know
and it's really easy to talk about John Gregg running us into deficits. That's not negative. The only thing that's negative is putting us into deficits, and that will be pointed out down the road.
The governor this week was asked again what his position was on RFRA. He couldn't answer the question in a way that didn't say that he was not going to support civil rights for gay, lesbians, and transgender. He hasn't changed the dynamic of that. We lost 2,000 jobs this week going to Mexico. So if this guy thinks the state's going in the right direction, he's looking in the wrong data.
What does this all mean, though, for the ticket going forward? And I know that they had all said, politics aside, this had nothing to do with politics. What does Holcomb bring to the ticket that Sue Ellspermann didn't?
You know, I think you're supposed to do no harm. I mean, mostly second picks, whether they're vice presidents or they're lieutenant governors, you're trying to do no harm. I think he's actually done harm here. He's taken a woman off the ticket that everybody, I think, had great respect for in the State House. She was a no-nonsense person. She wasn't that political, and replaced it with one of the most political people you could possibly pick, the former state chairman of the Republican Party. That is partisan. You can say it isn't, but that's a very partisan position, and that's what he had. And so I don't understand it on any level, except for the fact that they think that he can be the hatchet man for the Republican Party.
Again, hilarious in how short-term your thinking is. You're trying to politicize this now. I have no doubt that Sue Ellspermann will try and get back in the political arena. You have given her so many bumper stickers and quotes to make that run and completely plow you guys over. It's her choice to pursue the Ivy Tech job. This is a choice. She's an adult. She's making a choice to pursue that job.
Not too many people
take on a new opportunity.
Not too many people at a re-elect leave the lieutenant governor's office. In fact, it's never happened in the state of Indiana that I can recall.
On top of all this, we'll jump away. The Senate race itself now. Prediction for where this all ends with Todd Young in the signature debate.
I think it's a really close call. There's two Democrats and two Republicans. The two Republicans are appointed by the governor. The two Democrats are appointed by the Democratic state chairman. They're going to have to look at it. The decision they made 4 years ago to protect Mike Pence was to throw Jim Wallace off the ballot for the exact same thing. Not enough signatures. It'll be interesting to see if they stay consistent.
Pete?
Well, unlike when it comes to Democrats and petition signatures, no one will go to jail. But I think Todd Young will be fine. I've spoken to his campaign about it. They're very confident that in the end he'll be on the ballot, not only in May, but again in November, and defeat Barron Hill.
Holcomb leaving, does that help or hurt Todd Young?
Well, if he's not on the ballot, it makes no difference. But it clearly would help Todd Young without Eric Holcomb in there. They were going to probably divide some of the establishment vote. And if all the establishment vote goes to Todd Young, then he is in better shape. But remember, just a couple of years ago, we had insurgent versus establishment, Lugar versus Murdoch, and Murdoch won that primary. So it's hard to know.
On balance, I think it'll help Todd Young more. You're already seeing some endorsements go his way. Some folks going to Marlin. Those haven't been made public yet that I'm aware of. But you are seeing momentum. Even though this petition thing is circulating out there, you're seeing momentum moving to Todd Young's corner.
Our insider's looking lovely on this Valentine's Day. Thanks so much for being here, Kip 2, Pete Seat. We appreciate it as always. Meanwhile, he's been at the center of discussion all week in the U.S. Senate race. Today, we're talking directly to Todd Young. That's next on Indianapolis This Week on RTV6. Indianapolis this week. Plenty of talk about the Republican Senate primary here in Indiana. Our Katie Hines was there as Democrats filed their challenge to Todd Young's petitions to get on the ballot. I sat down with Todd Young just before that news broke about what's now a two-man race with Marlon Stutzman. You have both served Indiana on Capitol Hill for the past several years. For that undecided Indiana voter, what's the difference between the two of you? Why should they select you come May?
Well, my focus is on making sure that Hoosiers have more jobs that pay well, on making sure that we're safe and secure, something having spent a long time in the Marine Corps and at the U.S. Naval Academy, I know how to do. And then finally, I'm offering a brand of leadership that I learned in the Marine Corps. It's about results. And so I'm running on my own merits, not running against anyone except for perhaps Barron Hill on the Democrat side, who I defeated back in 2010, and look forward to carrying our message of conservative leadership across the state.
Let's talk about those results. Your second television ad recently hit the airwaves, touting your military background, of course, and your career so far on Capitol Hill. What's the one measure, the one bill that you have sponsored that you have been most proud of during that tenure?
You know, I'm proud of a number of them, but perhaps the one that's received the most attention because of the positive impact it would have on jobs and the economy is what's known as the REINS Act. It would require every major regulation coming out of the EPA or IRS or Obamacare regulations to come before Congress for an up or down vote so that we, the people, can once again hold our elected representatives accountable for the rules we live by and not have them just blame unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats.
Turning now to the presidential race, any chance that you endorse a candidate before the May primary?
Almost none.
A wise move.
I've never listened to anyone else when I cast my own votes. I like to make my own decisions, and I tend to regard it as somewhat presumptuous for others to listen to me when they're making a decision about who to vote for, especially who to vote for president.
How closely are you watching the presidential race right now?
Frankly, I'm focused intently on carrying my message of more jobs that pay better, on keeping Americans safe and secure by staying actively and selectively engaged in the world, and on a form of conservative leadership that actually is focused on getting things done, the results-oriented leadership I learned in the U.S. Marines.
I had recently asked Congresswoman Brooks whether or not she feels that Donald Trump has become the face of the Republican Party. Do you feel that he's the face of the party, or do you think there's a lot more time to go in this race before anything's decided?
I think we're a Big Tent party, and there's room for many faces. In the end, we're going to have one leader, however. And my hope would be that whomever gets the Republican nomination for president, this would be the sort of leader who can bring people together, not just Republicans, but help grow our party as well and appeal to a broader constituency.
Would you support Donald Trump if he got the nomination?
I will absolutely support whoever is up against Bernie Sanders, self-avowed socialist, or Hillary Clinton, a very flawed candidate in my mind.
Todd Young, thank you for joining us. We'll be right back. You're watching Indianapolis This Week on RTV6. Welcome back, and we want to thank you so much for joining us here on Indianapolis This Week. We'll continue to track the threat of snow throughout the rest of the day with Storm Team 6 and through the RTV6 app. For Katie, Raphael, and our entire team here, have a fantastic Sunday and happy Valentine's Day.